If you've ever been with a recruiter, a coach, a mentor or hiring manager and they're asking you some quite simple questions and you feel that they can see straight through your answers, you're absolutely right, they can. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the entire interview process in a way that you've never seen before. This isn't about memorising the perfect answer to your greatest strength or rehearsing a polished story about your greatest weakness and reframing it as you care too much. This is about why you get asked the questions you get asked, what that means, and looking at the game within the game. It's also the basis to develop a framework for your career, your life choices, and the direction for your future. So let's get in there. Firstly, every question you ever get asked in an interview situation has layers. Each question is not in isolation, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. They're not just listening to what you say. They're hearing between the lines. They're hearing your meaning and deconstructing your answers and connecting the dots across your entire story. By doing that, they're building a picture of three critical things: your value, your risk, and your understanding of that. So were you really made redundant, or were you fired, or were you managed out? Do you understand your own impact, or are you just repeating a job description? Are you self-aware enough to know what you bring to the table and honest enough to know what you don't? In this video, we're going to walk through 14 scenarios, questions that will reveal everything. They're not isolated sound bites, but pieces of a puzzle when woven together show whether you're a strategic hire or a potential liability, and whether you know yourself, your market and your worth, or whether you're hoping that just someone out there is going to take a chance on you. By the end of this video too, you'll understand what's being assessed and why you're being asked these questions. And more importantly, you'll know how to think about your own value story, your package, your brand, in a way that actually positions you for the future you want. You'll start on a journey to understand far more about yourself, like a product. And if you believe in the product and you know the product, it's significantly more convincing when you're selling it. So let's get in there. Now, remember that anyone questioning you that does this for a living does it every single day, hours per day. So they can smell BS a mile away. So if they don't get the answer they want, they'll ask another question and they'll ask another question, even if it gets uncomfortable. So it's better to think clearly about why they're asking the question, not necessarily what words have come out of their mouth, but you need to reverse engineer this. And if they're asking you a question, try and work out what they're looking for from the answer. It may not be a direct response to that question. So let's use an example of someone that's been in their position for 10 to 20 years and they've recently been made redundant from a large corporate environment. So why were you made redundant? This is a question I would ask because I want to know whether they have been fired, whether they have been made redundant, or whether they've been laid off for other reasons. I want to sift out the exact truth because my reputation depends on that. The next, I'm then going to ask, so what changes contributed to the redundancy? I'm asking this because I want to check the validity of the answer you just gave in the last question to see if they are aligned. The second question following the first question is usually a confirmation that the first answer was correct. Is the function that you performed in your last business, in your last company, is that still active? I want to know this because this reflects on you, your skills, your experience, and exactly the situation. Again, compounding the truth behind why you were made redundant. So in the event that you were made redundant, but your function was replaced by someone else, there's immediate sort of red flags that are coming up. How many other people in the organisation are being made redundant or have been made redundant alongside yourself? I want to know this again because it frames why you were made redundant. Because if 20 other people were made redundant, it's not that relevant about you. But if it's only you that's been made redundant, that's a bigger problem. Furthermore, if the entire team, or 20, 40, 300 or more people have been made redundant, and it's an isolated case within that company but the ecosystem of what that company did also has other companies in the locality that would be potential employers, then there's going to be an influx, a great supply of candidates that are probably similar to yourself that would lessen the chances of success for anyone working with you. This is just a gauge on how complicated and difficult it would be for a recruiter or mentor or coach to assist and to get a fruitful outcome. How flexible and adaptable are you? So I want to understand your attitude. I want to understand whether you're fixed to a location, whether you're fixed to salary, whether you're fixed to anything, whether you take on new learning happily, whether you're a manager or sole contributor, whether you consider full-time, part-time, interim, contracting. Logistical questions. Because a one-trick pony is worth considerably less and significantly harder to satisfy in the way we work today. So that is about risk and long-term tenure. What other aligned positions have you considered? Here I want to know how much you've considered your capabilities and your cultural fit. So do those aligned industries sound sexy to you? Does it all sound great? And actually, would it really work out? I want to know whether you understand that different businesses, even that look relatively similar, have different business models, different structures, different employee hierarchies, and whether that would fit with your own experiences and skills. Or are you guessing at those roles and responsibilities within those companies because they just look shiny? Has the length of the role that you've just left and the tenure in your company, has that pigeonholed you into things that are only relevant to certain companies and certain company sizes? So my concern here is that you've been married to this company for 10, 15, 20 years, possibly more. In that time, good or bad, you've picked up habits, frameworks, methodologies, cultural differences that might work fantastically in that company. But every company is different. And when you're presented to a new company, this is a risk for them because you could be seen as someone that comes with bad habits. Old dogs don't change their spots. These are risks that would be very apparent in someone's mind. And if you notice, I circled back with this question to the previous one, which is about adaptability and flexibility. I've just reframed it as something else. And by doing that, I'm drilling down. You might not have noticed that. And I'm drilling down into answers that might possibly throw up another red flag or green flags. Hopefully green flags, because my reputation depends on it. So on the note of culture and adaptability, are you still chasing the top job? Or have you got to the stage in life where you're happily sharing your knowledge and experience with more junior staff? A role of mentoring is more satisfying for you than your own trajectory. This question frames whether you are a giver or a taker. This is a strong indicator of management style. Is this all about you? Or actually, are you going to give something back? Do you succeed by giving rather than just taking? What do you actually want to do in your next role or chapter in your life? Here, I want to know whether you blindly go forwards or even backwards without giving it a lot of thought. Do you have a strategic plan in your life? By leaning on someone's whole life patterns, including their personal life, you can get a really good gauge on how they think about things. Do they have strategies and plans, or do they just blindly blunder around? Because the relative values that they have in their personal life will come across and resonate in their professional life. So if someone has strategies and plans, they have goals and directions in their personal life, or a crossover, there's a very good chance it will be paramount in their role. What's your pay package? And is it important to you? Can you break it down? I'm not trying to get you cheap here. What I'm trying to do is to gauge how that's broken down. I'm trying to understand the entire package, how that's broken down, and your appetite to risk. So that would be fixed salary, your variable bonus, any other benefits, anything that contributes to it. Because someone that is only prepared to take a 100% fixed salary, specifically in forward-facing roles, they're not showing any commitment or risk based on their own competence and core abilities to be able to perform that job. If someone, on the other hand, says, I'll risk 20% on the bonus, then you're more likely to go, actually, yeah, I think that they're actually putting their own money into it. And of course, the full amount, because that's useful when it comes to talking with your future employer. Now, I always ask this question because it does frame the relationship very well between the employer and the employee. So this is it. If a job is a transaction between two entities, one entity is the employer and the other entity is the employee, where the employer pays the employee to turn up and deliver tasks and the employee gets paid for them, and the transaction is as simple as money changing hands for goods delivered or services delivered, then what is your greatest USP, your unique selling point to get the best return on investment for your employer? So when an employer employs an employee, his investment or her investment is not just what they pay you. There's roughly 100% extra on top of that, which covers benefits, taxes, insurances. There's a whole load of other things. The roof over your head, the seat you sit on, all of these things combined. Having an employee is expensive. So if you can quantify what your return is, then it makes it very easy to understand your value in the business. And that then moves on to, if you understand what your value is in the business, then you can understand very clearly when it comes to asking for pay rise and negotiating, and you're lowering the risk of redundancy, getting promotions, all that sort of thing, because you have a clear framework of exactly what your value is. So this is a question that you should be thinking anyway. This isn't something which you should get hijacked on. You should really know what your value is. You should be using that as a really good gauge in your career path to provide value, because if you provide value, then your position is going to be significantly more secure and fruitful for both you and your employer. The second reason I asked that question is that, for the most part, I find that people who have been in a position for a long time, 10, 15, 20 years, they have not written a CV for an awful long time. A lot of what they do won't be on there because they won't have remembered it. Because you should be continuously updating your CV on a 6-month basis, because you are moving through the business learning new tricks and tips. By asking that question, it makes people think, and they suddenly go, oh yeah, I did that and I achieved that and I did this and I made this much and whatever else. And you can find lots of stuff that isn't on the CV. These are gems. So this is another reason why it's a real bonus to think about that very, very clearly. This question is a little bit antagonistic, puts you on the spot, and I want your comments in how you think you would answer this. Here it is. What's the biggest risk from taking you on? This really cuts to the chase. Firstly, it's a buying signal, because as someone that is asking that question, you're clearly considering taking them on. So you're considering them in that role. So as I said, comments in the thing below. How do you answer that? And I'll make a video about how I would answer that and how that would best come across with the answers, with the comments that you've left for me. The last two are really combined there. What other companies have you applied for and for what roles? This is more for my own benefit than anyone else, because if I'm helping you and I'm coaching you and I'm developing your position to go out and get another role, I want to know exactly who else is working with you on that. Again, this circles back to a previous question, is whether you have a strategy or a plan, or are you just blindly going out there, willy-nilly, shooting your shotgun and hoping for the best? If a recruiter asks you that question, there's another reason for that. Because a recruiter will be writing down exactly what companies and roles you've been going for, so that they can put their own candidates into those roles, and those roles are potential leads for them. So beware what you tell a recruiter that you're going for. Coupled with that question is, what stages are you at in other processes? So let's say the previous question, you said, well, I'm going for 2 jobs, and the question I've just asked you is, what stages are you at? If you're telling me that actually you're at final interview stage, or you have one offer and the other one's at final interview stage, if I was a recruiter or I was a hiring manager and I heard that, it wouldn't always make me think, oh, I must go quicker, I must make them an offer. Because if they have other candidates in the process, or they've just started things and they're just looking around, you're not going to get the job. They're going to let you go. So you have to be more than perfect. You'd have to be bigger than Jesus to get them to make you an offer right there and then. So that is unlikely to happen. So the reason I asked that question is that I want to gauge, just like they would want to gauge, how much effort is really worth putting into you to get you the next role. Because if you're nearly there, it's hardly worth it. A simple analogy to that is, if the stall's open in a horse race and all horses bolt off, you're not exactly going to start your horse at the start of the race and expect it to win, because the others will get to the finish line quicker. And think carefully about this. And recapping on this entire video at this point is, don't listen to the question and think, I must answer that question. Think about what they are trying to get from the question and what they are hearing from you. Okay, so what they're hearing is the meaning of what you've said to them. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, you're going to enjoy this one here, where I break down more insider tips and tricks about your own personal growth and career moves. So check it out now.